So maybe let's start now. I think we are quite a huge number of people already and 5 minutes behind. So good morning to our Brazilian participants, good afternoon to our German participants, and of course, good evening to our Indian participants. So thanks for joining our webinar on the results of the task force on combined wind and solar auctions today. I think most of you know me by now. However, we have some new faces participating today, so I quickly introduce myself. My name is Christina Kramer, and I started working with the Energy Partnership in November last year. And I'm the head of the Secretariat of the Energy Partnership between Brazil and Germany. I'm working with GIZ, usually based in Brasilia. However, due to the pandemic, I am in Germany since last week. Anyways, I will moderate this meeting today. And maybe before we hop into the agenda, I would like to quickly walk you through some technical details of MS Teams. So let me just sum up the main functions that we are going to use. First, at the upper right of your screen, you can see the microphone button, and you can either mute or unmute yourself. And I will ask you to keep your microphone closed if you're not talking. Right next to the microphone button, you can find the camera button. And I would also like to ask you to turn your webcams off in order to preserve bandwidth unless you're speaking. And if you have any contribution, comment, or questions, please click on the hand button to raise your virtual hand. It's also at the upper right. And then we will ask you to unmute yourself and to contribute. You can also use the chat function. And my colleague Stephanie is going to moderate the chat today. And last but not least, please note that we are going to record this webinar, and then we will share the video later on a public online platform. So if you're not comfortable with being recorded, please leave us a message either in the chat, or you can send us a message by email. And then I assure you we will edit the video accordingly. So now let's start. So again, a big thank you for joining us here today. Maybe some words. Why did we start this task force in the first place? We saw that over the last years, the international energy panorama showed a growing interest in the promotion of hybrid projects. And one of the preferred ways to promote the expansion of new entrants has been through public auctions. And this is why we started this task force in December last year. And the task force was composed originally of German and Brazilian experts. And then we had a significant contribution also from our Indian experts who joined us today as well. So hello there. And this webinar will present the results and key findings of this task force, which we compiled in a working paper we are going to share with you after the webinar. However, Peggy Schulz from BMWi will give you some more insights about the process and the task force in a few minutes. And before that, I would like to invite Mr. Thiago Barral, the president of EPE, for his opening words.
Well, thank you, Christina, and good morning, good afternoon, everyone. It's a great pleasure to be here with you today, because it's the chance that we have to see the result, concrete result of our collaboration work, our cooperation work. I want to first of all thank Peggy Schulz, my colleague, for her leadership role on the German side. I also want to thank Christina Kramer in the Secretariat function and all the team on the German side. You have been really great partners. You know, we have managed to have this very respectful collaboration, respectful relationship. And so I'm really happy that we have managed to deliver what we plan to do, and very concretely. I also want to thank our colleagues on the Brazilian side. I want to highlight Gustavo Ponte, his role in leading the technical partnership on our side through this work. So thank you, Gustavo, and our team at EPE and the Ministry of Mines and Energy. And I also have to thank all the experts that have collaborated along this journey in the past months. And finally, we are here for presenting the results in this webinar on combined wind and solar auctions and releasing the working paper that we have produced. Just to remind, previously to this, we in 2000, I think 18, we managed to have the working paper on flexibility in power systems. And that work really had an impact on our planning studies at EPE. So hopefully this working paper will also be very useful for setting next steps in terms of energy planning for wind and solar and making the most of these two technologies for advancing renewable energy in our mix. Finally, I want to highlight how proactive our colleagues from Germany have been, particularly in helping bring experts from around the world, including our colleagues from India, that really brought their experience in the topic of combined auctions. So I think this is really really valuable to have this collaboration, this energy partnership between Brazil and India, Brazil and Germany, because it facilitates a lot of this collaboration, not only between Brazil and Germany, but also other experiences for us to learn together based on our focus areas of our priority areas. And so my final message is that this webinar and the work done in the past few months prove that our energy partnership Brazil-Germany is in good shape, and it means that we are ready to plan further works as we continue our work plan and our further discussions on the renewable energy axis of this energy partnership. So thank you so much and wish you all a fruitful webinar today.
Yeah, thank you so much, Thiago, for these kind words. I'm happy to hear that, and I also think that our partnership is in a very good shape. So I would like to hand over to Mrs. Peggy Schulz from the German Federal Ministry for Economic Affairs and Energy, BMWi now, for her opening words and also her insights from the task force, because she participated in all our meetings. And for those of you who haven't had the chance to meet her yet, Mrs. Peggy Schulz is responsible for Latin America at BMWi's division for the Bilateral Energy Cooperation. So please go ahead, Peggy. Stephanie will share the presentation in a second.
Yes, thank you very much, Christina, for the introduction, and also thank you very much, Thiago, for the kind words from your side. I think we absolutely share the sentiment. I think this has been a very valuable learning process for both sides. A warm welcome also from my side to the colleagues from EPE, the colleagues from MME, and also the other relevant institutions in Brazil, ONS and ANEL. To be named here especially. I think I'm very glad that we have the opportunity to share with all of you today what we have worked on together within this expert group. And before we go into the details and also the details of the working paper, I have the pleasure to give you a bit of a background today on our cooperation and also how this working group came about. So the bilateral energy partnership that we have, as Thiago already mentioned, the idea behind it is to share experiences and best practices with like-minded countries on how to drive the energy transition forward. And we've been working together with the colleagues in Brazil for quite a long time, but we also have energy partnerships, as you can see on this slide, with a couple of other countries, and GIZ in several countries supports us in implementing these partnerships and on working together. With regard to the Brazilian-German energy partnership, we're working together in two groups, renewable energies and energy efficiency. The renewable energies group is the one that we're implementing jointly with EPE, and energy efficiency with MME. And as a result of the renewable energies group, we decided to found the expert group or the task force on combined wind and solar auctions, as we saw that this is a topic that is of relevance to both of our countries, and that we wanted to exchange on. This was done in September 2020. Then we had our first meeting in December 2020. As Christina said, it was a joint meeting of EPE and BMWi together with experts from Germany and Brazil on the topic. From the German side, it was presented, or the innovation auctions that were first launched last year were presented, and some insights shared from the first auctions that were done here in Germany. The Brazilian side also shared some insights on auctions that have been previously done, and also on the research that has been done with regards to combined wind and solar auctions. We then decided that we wanted to have another meeting as a trilateral approach together with colleagues from India, as India has already gathered quite a lot of experience in the fields of joint auctions. For this, or combined auctions, for this meeting, we decided to specifically focus on auction design. And then the summary of these meetings together with further research led to the paper that will be presented to us today by Mr. Roberto Castro, and I'm very much looking forward to your presentation and to recapping the results of the work that we have done, and I'm looking forward to working with you further on this topic, but also on other topics that we have already elaborated as part of our work plan. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you, Peggy, also for this contextualization of the task force. So next we have Mr. Roberto Castro from MRTS Consulting with a presentation of the key findings and the results of the task force. Roberto was also a member of this task force, and together with his team, he elaborated a first draft of the working paper and included also all of your comments you sent to us later on. And while Roberto now is sharing his presentation, maybe some information to the rest of our participants. We will have plenty of time after the presentation for your questions and comments also. So please feel free to write them down in the chat or note them down for later on, and then raise your hands for our discussions. So Roberto, go ahead.
Okay, thank
the
you,
floor
Christina.
is yours.
Yeah, thank you. I will project the presentation now. Here you are. Can you see the presentation, please?
Not yet. Now it's sharing, I think. Yes, we can see it now.
Okay. Thank you very much, Christina. Before starting the presentation itself, I'd like to emphasize that the working paper is the result of group work involving all members of the task force. However, I'd like to leave a special thanks to Gustavo and the PE team, as well as to Christina and Stephanie from GIZ, that I don't dare to pronounce it in German, for their involvement and the relevant contributions. Thank you very much. In behalf of the MRTS Consulting, I'd like to thank the opportunity to be with you in this fascinating project. Thank you. Well, we are going into our agenda. It must be short because I do not have that much time to present the whole project that has about 40 pages. And we decide to choose three topics to discuss a little bit. The first one is an introduction, where we're gonna go into an overview of the working paper. The second one, you're going to talk a little bit about the main achievements of the project that related to combining wind and solar auctions, and they highlight the German, Brazilian, and especially Indian experience that was a very important contribution to the project. I would congratulate the one who invited the Indian people, specialists, to the second workshop, because it was really useful for us. Thank you very much. And finally, to the conclusions. Wind and solar power plants have spread worldwide in the last decade, and it seems to be a no-returning path for the humanity, especially for the electricity industry. It was done because of the decreasing investment, operation, and maintenance costs. And the public actions have played a relevant role in the virtuous cycle of price reduction, as in 2018, according to IRENA, about 106 countries had employed the renewables auctions for at least once. It is expressive results. There is not a single, the first achievement that you notice in our research is that you notice that there is not a single auction designed to be applied to every general procurement situation. It's always needed to adaptation to fit specific requirements, and the flexibility of auction design is essential to achieve this end. Preparing and implementing auctions requires previous definition of objectives, clear objectives, market understanding, knowledge of institutional capabilities and project development cycle, and the auction design is a consequence of these factors. It's not the cause, but the consequence of the factors that you have to study previously. And as when it comes to combine the auctions, it requires still more attention because they bring additional variables and the possibilities to the process. The combination of more than one generation source, considering energy storage in the same auction, allows developers to take advantage of complementarity generation as well as of price arbitrage when storage systems are considered. In these cases, it is necessary to prevent windfall profits, cross subsidies, and evaluate the need of predefined technological quotas, as stated by EPE in 2018. Combining wind solar plants, renewable generation variability impacts the asset's cash flow. This is an important issue for the developer because the cash flow of the project might be impacted and the generation curve may not match perfectly so the contracted profile and bring exposures to spot prices that are undesirable for long-run investment plans. From the investor perspective, hedging strategies to generation variability are to explore commercial diversified portfolios, implement hybrid projects combining power plants with different seasonal and hourly generation patterns, consider storage system with hybrid plants. Complementarity can be explored to mitigate the portfolio project generation risk and improve financial results under a risk-return perspective. This is a calculation that every developer might to do before going into an auction. Studies on complementarity among renewables in Brazil show high potential to be explored by hybrid projects. I had the opportunity to present a part of this project that you have developed in MRTS, that is the combination of hydropower plants with wind, solar, and solar power plants, including storage. And you can show that the complementarity when you optimize the operation of the system, it brings a lot of benefits to the whole process. even to the operation, centralized operation of the system. But this is another issue that you can discuss later on. When it comes to wind and solar complementarity in Brazil, you have prepared this chart that taking attention to Rio Grande do Norte. Even in Rio Grande do Norte, when you compare the solar plant with the wind, you notice that within the state, you have different complementarity depending on the region you are in. If you consider the countryside, this is the complementarity. In the very beginning of the day, you do not have a high complementarity. But when you come to seaside, you notice that from the very beginning of the day, you have a lot of complementarity. It means that depending on the region you are, the taking advantage of the complementarity might bring you different issues to deal with. Combining wind solar plants, some benefits. It's important for us to discuss a little bit about this because all of us know the benefits of them, but there is a point here that I'd like to emphasize. The CAPEX and OPEX cost savings, because of sharing of land, infrastructure, grid connection, technical control, and also the operation and maintenance synergy that leads to cost reduction. So you can take advantage of the CAPEX and the OPEX cost savings. Lower generation risk. Because of the variability of the generation, the renewable regeneration that's not controllable, the complementarity results in supply of more stable energy. And the point that I believe that is interesting to emphasize comes to optimization of the transmission system use. The local and the daily complementarity effect between wind and solar brings about the discussion of more efficiency in the transmission network utilization. This is particularly important to Brazil because in Brazil you are obliged to contract the capacity of transmission service equivalent to the nominal injection capacity of the projects. That is, the installed capacity reduced by the self-consumption of it. And for hybrid project, this point is interesting for us to discuss a little bit more because surely there is a spare installed capacity of the transmission system that is not used as far as it's seldom the projects are generating the installed capacity simultaneously. So it brings about the discussion of the optimizing the transmission system use. For how the project this issue is under discussion by the regulator in Brazil, CP 61 and TS 011. Expectations for the rule to be changed to allow flexibility in contracting transmission capacity, allowing the optimization of its use by hybrid projects. This is an important issue, particularly to Brazil. When it comes to the combining with the wind solar actions, I will bring you some achievements of the working paper. It's impossible for us to bring you all the achievements, so I encourage all the participants in this tech first to complete this presentation afterwards during the discussion that you follow. And then by 2019, the innovation, we're talking about Germany's experience or German experience. By 2019, the Innovation Action Ordinance implemented the new auction and the remuneration models. Actually, the remuneration models in Germany has evolved fast because Germany started with feed-in tariffs for renewables. Then it went to the payment of the generation in case of negative price to compensate the negative price to generators. And nowadays For the first time, a market premium for renewables was offered instead of support payments to generation in case of negative price. So we believe that this development in the auction design is very important to improve the hybrid projects in Germany. In this innovative model, combined projects can compete because are considered as technological innovation. This is something important because how long will they be considered innovation? By September 2020, the German agency promoted an innovative auction for energy, procuring 677 megawatts of installed capacity. The winners were 28 projects combined type, amounting about 400 megawatts in installed capacity. The hybrid projects in Germany are in the early stages of development, and the path to boost this type of projects in the country has been through so-called innovative auctions. I believe that you have to congratulate the German experts because on April this year there were an innovation action that was very successful. By 2001, it was scheduled 2 auctions. One occurred in April, that you're going to have some highlights about it now, and the other 2 occur in August. The objective is to contract 250 megawatts with a maximum payment of 7.5 euro cents per kilowatt hour. The main rules of these auctions: only hybrid projects or renewable plants with storage can participate. Project must have at least wind and solar source, and the plant output must take place through a single grid connection point. Bids are valid only for new projects, so new entrants can participate in these innovative auctions. On April 2021, innovation auction was 2 times oversubscribed for the 250 megawatts capacity offered to be built, and they received 43 bids with 500 megawatts, I would say, with all the bids coming from for solar PV system with energy storage technology. It selected 18 winning bids with a total bid amount of 258 megawatts, with fixed market premiums agreed upon range between 3.3 and 4.9 cents per kilowatt hour. And the average price was 4.3 cents per kilowatt hour. That represents 57% discount over the maximum price expected. So it was a very successful auction in terms of the price. When it comes to Indian experience that we're going to explore a little bit more, India has enabled the hybrid project solar wind by means of customized auctions. This is something different that you are practicing here in Brazil, that you do not have customized auctions yet, and maybe you do not need them. Since 2018, the application for this type of energy contracting mechanism has resulted in relevant increase in the installed capacity of hybrid projects, expected to reach 5 gigawatts by 2023. That is expressive expansion. This achievement derived from promotion of customized auctions designed to meet the demand and overcome congestions of the connection and the transmission system. Hydropower has been predominantly demanded by DISCOs, distribution companies, as part of their projected renewable energy expansion, in view of better demand management options and increased efficiency, resulting in more efficient system operations. It's important to highlight that the marketplace in India is quite different from marketplace in Brazil, because the contract is made directly with the DISCOs. Standard auctions for hybrid projects assure the solar wind competition composition in the hybrid project, avoiding purpose deviation, assure the criterion of minimum participation of the source. It means that the source with the highest local energy potential must keep highest participation, and the one with the lowest potential must meet a minimum defined participation, as for instance 15%. Use a standardized power purchase agreement as the contracting modality. It's very important to improve the risk assessment of the projects. What is important for us to emphasize here is that despite the fact that the renewable generation to vary very quickly, India has customized the auction for meeting peak supply and round the clock required from these hosts. So meeting peak supply auctions, the contracts have two selling prices, one applied during peak hours and another applied during the off-peak periods. There is heavy contractual penalty if the generator does not deliver on committed peak load. This is important to emphasize that this penalty might be high enough in order to prevent the lack of commitment from the developer side. Some hybrid projects also relied on storage system in their composition to bring generation stability. Round-the-clock auctions, the contractual rules establishes that the energy delivered must perform a minimum of 8% and 70% of the capacity utilization factor. And what's important here is that the difference between what it was contracted and what it was generated can be sold in the open market. It's important for the developer to know that. And they also have heavy penalties for the meeting requirements. And the multiple generation plants can compose the total generation. Another important point for us to understand is that the concept of hydro projects in India is also extended to multi-located projects. It means that a developer can develop the projects in different locations and consider them altogether as hydro projects. So the portfolio of generation assets in different locations aiming to optimize global resources. It is important for the developers as well. Brazilian experience. Brazil has a very successful history of applying auctions to promote the expansion of the renewable sources. The economic attractiveness of solar and wind projects was strongly boosted through auction. I would say that nowadays wind and solar are at the same levels of competitiveness because of the maturity of the supply chain. And the risk allocation on contracts offered in these auctions gradually evolved, guided by the maturity evolution of the source. It evolved because the risk in the very first auctions was transferred totally to the customer through the distribution companies that it had the right to pass through the costs to the customer, to the final customer. Nowadays, part of this risk is taken by the developer himself, so it's more balanced the risk allocation nowadays than it was in the past. The relevant auctions experience for the insertion of regeneration technologies is important basis for regulatory and the auction rules adjustments in order to allow the economic participation of hybrid projects in auctions. You have discovered in this research that in Brazil maybe you do not need to make it specific hybrid projects auctions because of the maturity of the supply chain. They can compete with the plants in an isolated situation as well. Going to the conclusions, The international experience shows a growing interest in the promotion of hybrid projects in several energy markets. One of the preferred ways to promote the expansion of new entrants have been through public auctions, which offer attractive contractual conditions to investors and the competition between projects, leading to a reduction in the prices to final customers. It may not be relevant to require a certain proportion of each source in the hybrid project, or to require that a storage system is associated if the contractual obligations are fully enforced and fully delivered by the plant. This is, in fact, what shall be tightly regulated and supervised. What we mean is that what is important for the auction design is to take care in the pre-qualification of the projects and the developers as well. Regulation, system operation, and expansion planning must be adapted to the introduction of combined projects into power system. The regulatory talks to be addressed are related to transmission contracting and the characterization of hybrid projects. In Brazil, discussed that ANEL CP61, as you have previously mentioned. And finally, to prevent predefined technological market quotas, cross subsidies, and the windfall profits, auctions ought to allow hybrid and individual projects to compete in the same process. Because if hybridization does not lead to relevant increase in competitiveness, the auction design is prepared to select the individual projects as more competitive. So if they are all together in the same auction, the market design must have this flexibility. It is essential to issue strict habilitation rules to make sure that the projects allowed to participate in the auction, either brownfield or greenfield, are backed by developers with experience and technical and financial assured capability. This is very important to deal with during the pre-qualification of the plants and of the developers. Regulation and pre-qualification must guarantee that the winner project meets at least what was contracted in the auction, the amount of energy contracted, the milestones defined, and the other basic features, respectively, to whether the project is individual or hybrid. It doesn't matter if you are talking about the individual or hybrid project. You have to take care as the same way in the pre-qualification, and the regulation must guarantee that. On the other hand, it is also relevant to minimize financial risks to developers by providing guarantees of the contracted electricity payment. In the very beginning of the auctions in Brazil, you believed that the distribution companies would never have any default in these contracts, but sometimes it happens. It must be prevented in order to allow the developer to present his lower cost without this risk. And finally, the stricter the habilitation rules and the enforcement of contractual obligation are, the smaller are the chances of materialization of the so-called winner's curse, in which project implementation delays or underperformance leads to the off-taker's nightmare. Both sides of the same coin must be prevented. Thank you very much. I've just finished. Christina, I didn't count on the time on that, but I believe that if I used more than 20 minutes, it wasn't that more. Thank you.
Actually, just 3 minutes more. But as you already had the conclusion slide open, I preferred not to to not to interfere. So I'm not sure before I open the discussion now. So please feel free to put your comments in the chat or raise your virtual hands. I'm not sure if Mr. Luis Carlos Siocchi, the General Director from ONS, or Mr. Carlos Eduardo Cabral Carvalho are here, because both accepted the invitation, but I'm not sure. Earlier I couldn't find them in the participant list. However, if you are here, we are very happy that you are here, and if you would like to say a few words now, I would like to invite you to open your microphone. I think they are not here. So let's start with the discussion. Stephanie, do we have any questions in our chat already?
We don't have any question in the chat, but I can see here that people are getting the meeting and they participate temporarily in the chat, and they just they are not able to write on the chat, I think. So if you wrote in the chat, you can feel free to open the microphone and ask the question.
Yes.
So Christina, if I may, just to stimulate the debate. So thank you for sure for Roberto for the presentation. And Roberto had the great challenge to summarize in a short presentation all the discussions we had. So just to emphasize one important point to let us discuss here, as we could see in the presentation, things are going on in many countries, and although we have some similarities, an important conclusion, in our opinion, is that each market must consider its particularities, needs, and its own challenges when designing the rules for hybrid power plants. This was very clear on India presentation on the last workshop. They were aiming at some specific challenges. And just to give an example, in Brazil, as we have so many hydropower plants, we have also particular challenges in the system operation, and thus combining wind and solar brings different benefits in each market. And from the study from NREL mentioned on our paper, they explains this point very well. But despite these differences between the markets, we see that all the countries in the discussion are trying to make the most of PV plus wind, and by sharing connection to the grid, by optimizing the projects and designing auctions. And this point was very important to see what is similar between the countries that we studied and what are the specific challenges that each market has. So, and this is very well pointed in the working paper. So I think it was a very, very important conclusion that we have on our workshops.
Okay, thank you, Gustavo. So I can see one raised hand here from India, Mr. Pratik. Please feel free to open your microphone then. I'm sorry, I think we can't hear you. Okay.
Hello, am I audible?
Yeah, now it's better. Could you please
Yeah,
repeat? Yes.
Yeah. And so I'm Pratik Prasoon. I'm from Solar Energy Corporation of India Limited. We had made the presentation for the last session of this, the joint effort. So I mean, first of all, I'd like to thank Mr. Roberto for such a detailed analysis of all the countries and who are party to this effort. Just one, minor observation. For India, the hybrid rules, they require minimum 33% of one component of the entire capacity. So the rules, the guidelines have been modified. So you can, I think we can examine and modify the data. So that is one thing. And secondly, actually, we are also working on the concept of round the clock, which was already discussed here. We are bringing, we have already issued a next edition of that round the clock projects, wherein we basically are trying to blend RE with so-called non-RE sources. So we have allowed sources such as thermal and gas-based projects to deliver what we call as true round-the-clock power, which will be basically dealt. The performance will be evaluated based on availability of the projects, as it is done in case of a conventional power plant. So Brazil, considering its resource richness in terms of hydro projects, so they may also, just a suggestion that they may examine the possibility of blending RE with hydro to provide that kind of firmness through RE on a round-the-clock basis. So, that is just my suggestion. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pratik, for these tips also and sharing the experience from India. And it's good to hear that you are already innovating more with hybrid auctions, and soon you will have to share more experiences with us then, because you're quite advanced with the topic, I think. I'm not sure if Gustavo or Roberto, do you want to react on that, or we have a comment in the chat also, I think, right?
We have a question in the chat, but let's see when Roberto wants to reply.
No, I believe that I do agree with Christina that this is something that is very important, and also Gustavo mentioned that you have to take care of the particularities of the countries in order to decide whether or not to promote a specific hybrid auction. So it's good news from India that the round the clock auctions and the peak load meet the demand are doing well, because you have to import this sort of the technology, Gustavo, somehow, I believe.
Yes, thanks. We have these questions now from Jeffrey Logan. Jeffrey, would you maybe like to open your microphone and ask the question directly?
Sure. Thank you very much, Christina, and thank you, Roberto and Gustavo, for a very interesting talk. I'm just curious if there's a simple way to estimate how much cheaper it is to do a combined hybrid project compared to individual projects. I just think it would be good for policymakers to know how much cost saving they can expect to achieve if you combine projects together rather than do them individually. Thank you.
Okay, I'd like to start with this. It's a very good question, because it's quite difficult for you to estimate the amount of benefit. You have to make a lot of assessments in order to have the historical of the wind and the solar available in the region you are going to implement the projects. And we do believe that the best way for you to evaluate this benefit is considering the hydro and the isolated projects in the same auction. Because, as you said, if the hybridization does not bring the benefits, it will be better for you to choose for isolated project. And then the market will give this benefit, because you yourself as developer, you must make the assessment, but as far as this assessment is not evaluated by the market, it is not that important for you to bring the hybrid projects. So as a conclusion, we believe, I hope Gustavo completed this answer, but we believe that bringing isolated and the hybrid project in the same auction is the best way for you to evaluate exactly the benefit that it brings to the market Otherwise, it makes no sense for you to enforce the hybrid project instead of the isolated if the benefit is not enough for you to do so. This is the point I'd like to bring, and this is something you have treated in the working paper.
Yes, and Jeffrey, thank you for the question. I think it's one of the most important ones because in our previous studies, we tried to address this point, but it's quite challenging. What we found is that the conclusions are very particular, and the analysis must be done for each project because it depends on the site conditions and the resource availability. I mean, if the wind blows more during the night or during the day, it will affect the complementarity. So, and consequently, the benefits of the hybridization. It will depend also on the design of the project. I mean, if the wind farm considers a larger water diameters, they will have greater capacity factors, and maybe we are going to have less grid capacity that can be used for the PV by the PV to use it on the most. And also it will depend on the share of each source, if we have more wind or more PV, but this share, as far as we concluded, must be set by each developer. They have to analyze its own project and see in which amount of wind or PV I can reduce or minimize the energy costs. So there is no general rule, and it's a good point that we don't set a minimum, but on the other hand, as Roberto mentioned, we don't also want to let one source take the benefit of the even or maybe a reduced price from the other source. So it's quite challenging defining this minimum share, but maybe we can let the developers bring their projects and let's see what is the best solution for each site and for each project. So it's quite challenging.
Yes. Just to complement a little bit, Gustavo, there are several methodologies for you to make this assessment. And I do agree with Gustavo when he brings the point that it's related to the developer to make this assessment and bring his project to the auction. And by the off-taker side, they will buy the best project. It doesn't matter if it is hybrid or not. I believe that this is the best way for us to improve the hybrid projects in a very stable way from the financial and the risk assessment point of view as well.
Okay, thank you. I don't want to interrupt this discussion, but we have 2 minutes left now, and we still have our closing words. I think there is one more question. Somebody raised his hand. Maybe Alex Costa, if you could send us the question afterwards or put it in the chat, and then we will answer it and send it to all the participants later on, because we will have to close now. Okay? And hi. Could you send us your questions then afterwards, Alex?
Yeah, well, I have a little comment.
Yes?
No more than this.
Okay, well, come on. That's okay. Just a short one then.
Okay, so congratulations for the very good task. Very nice to see the advances. However, to try to improve it, please let me emphasize again a suggestion regarding a deep discussion on the complementarity between the solar radiation and the surface regional and local wind speed, taking into account different time scales over the past decades and also considering climate change scenarios. I think that we should invite all the disciplines such as climatology and meteorology and other researchers with different points of view to a deeper discussion, okay? As I told you in a previous meeting, for case studies in Rio Grande do Norte, Pernambuco, and Bahia, some preliminary studies about climate change scenarios show us significant changes in the degree of complementarity over the next 35 years. So that's all by now. Again, congratulations for this task force.
Yes, Christina.
Christina.
Thank you very much, Alex. Christina, just a second, please. I see that Luis Badayan is in this meeting, and
yes.
You have just finished a project that is related exactly to this point. And we in MRTS simulated the complementarity subjected to the climate change in the future from 2050 to 2008. So you notice that the complementarity reduces when the climate changes, and it means that you have to take advantage of this now. You do not let you wait for the future, because in the future this complementarity is over. So it's more difficult, and you believe that the resilience of the plants in Brazil do depend on this complementarity. You have to take care of it as soon as possible. Thank you very much. If Badayan would like to say some words about that, it's up to him. Thank you.
I don't think so, because I can't see him opening his microphone.
Okay.
So I will.
Okay. Yes.
Yes.
But Christina, I'm willing to show this project for you as well. It's very important. I believe that is important to EPE and the operation.
Yes,
As
please.
well. Thank you.
So if you can share it with me, I can then share it with all of our participants later after the webinar. And I will hand over without further ado then to Gustavo and Peggy for their closing words. Gustavo, would you like to start?
Sure. Thank you, Christina. I just would like to thank all the participants for the discussion we have had on our previous workshops. Also, thanks to MRTS team led by Roberto, and for organizing the contributions in a paper and in a presentation. And special thanks to GSI and BMWi for arranging the meetings and bringing the experts and making it possible. For us in EPE, it was a great pleasure to be part of the discussions, to share some experience and to learn with the experiences of other countries. In the recent past, we have released some reports about hybrid power plants, including the international experience, but we were quite limited to what we knew and what we have found on the literature. So in these workshops, we had the opportunity to get in touch with the people who are working on this topic in their countries and to learn even more and to get updated information. It was very good to learn. And as Roberto mentioned in the beginning, the conclusions on the presentation are not the conclusions from MRTS or EPE teams only, but it considers the contribution from all the task force members. And we have the opportunity to improve even more with the discussions we have today, like the contribution from Alex Costa recently. So, and just to give an idea of how important this discussion is, today, ANEEL, our regulatory agency, is going to decide about a second public consultation regarding the rules for hybrid power plants, and they expect to have it in place still this year. So I think the paper that we produced together will be helpful also for ANEEL, and as soon as it's released, we are going to publish it on the EPE website also. So thank you so much for all the participants of the task force, and we in EPE are open for further discussions. Feel free to get in touch with us. I wish success for the deployment of hybrid power plants around the world, helping to foster the energy transition. So that's it. Have a good day, and thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Gustavo, for your words. Peggy, go ahead.
Yes, thank you very much. Also from my side, Gustavo, thank you to the EPE team for the very good cooperation and information sharing that we've had with you. Also, thank you to MITS and to Roberto Castro. I think you did a very good job on in compiling everything in the paper and adding additional information. And also to the other participants of the task forces. It's good to hear that you already have concrete use for the paper, for putting things into practice. And we're looking forward to hearing more in the future of what the outcomes will be, and also which experiences you will have made in the Brazilian context. So I think we're not done yet with the sharing of best practices in this regard. And we look forward to further exchanges. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you so much from the German-Brazilian Energy Partnership as well. A big thank you, of course, to all of our experts who participated in all of the meetings, and your comments and questions, which were quite helpful. So I shout out to all of the experts here from Germany, Brazil, India, and today also from the US, EPE, MRTS, also from Agora Energie, we're in the Guidehouse, all of you. So this paper wouldn't be possible without your contributions. I would also like to thank you, MME, for participating today and also in the other meetings. And thanks also to my colleagues Stephanie and Filippi, who supported us today from the technical part. And have a nice day and stay healthy. So, bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank
Have a nice
you all.
day. Thank
Bye-bye.
you very much.
Thank you very much. Have a nice day.
Bye-bye.